In a world where Black women are made to feel that pain and struggle is a rites of passage, and that you should be grateful for receiving less and thankful that you received anything at all, or that you have to be the strong Black woman, the loud Black woman, or better yet, the angry Black woman. Even after you've been treated like crap and denied luxury in the soft life because that wasn't reserved for you. Historically, Black women have portrayed the mammy, the maid, the Jezebel, the sassy Black friend, and less than her worth. But there was one Black girl who said, hell no, we're not taking it. We get to sit at the popular lunch table too. Some may refer to her as picky, polished, bougie, or selective. But this girl is subversive, disruptive, and an antidote to a system that was built to make her feel impossible. And that girl is the high maintenance Black girl. And in today's video, I am going to give you 6 reasons why we should be thanking her. Let's get into it. Hi, my name is Tammy, and welcome back to my channel, where feminine energy, old Hollywood glamour, and psychology meet. In today's video, I am going to discuss 6 of my favorite hyper-feminine, high-maintenance Black women in media, and 6 reasons why we should be thanking them. Let's just jump right into it. Number 1, Lisa Turtle, using fashion as power.
$386? You think I went overboard?
Like the crew of the Titanic.
This is serious. Lisa, when your father finds out, you are gonna get in trouble. Oh, come on. I'm Daddy's little girl.
If you want to live to be Daddy's big girl, take the stuff back.
Now, there was no way I could start this list without starting with the OG high-maintenance Black girl, Lisa Turtle. The OG classy baddie, the girl who was giving hashtag soft life before hashtag soft life was a trend. This was probably my first depiction of seeing a Black teenage girl in high school who was a part of the it crowd, who was not struggling, who was not poor, whose parents were wealthy, a Black girl surrounded by white friends, but she wasn't just the Black friend or the aide to the white characters. Lisa had her own story, her own identity. You can tell that her friends on the show and that the audience saw Lisa as a girl with great fashion as opposed to the Black friend in the group. And if I recall correctly, Lisa came from the wealthiest background of her entire friend group. And I think Kelly Kapowski, who played the popular white girl, had the least amount of money because it was referenced in the show that Kelly Kapowski had a lot of siblings and that at times her parents were financially struggling. So much so leading Kelly to go have a part-time job. And as you remember, Kelly worked part-time at the Max. While on the other hand, Lisa was like, job who? What is that? This was brilliant because you rarely see the white popular girl coming from a working class environment and the Black friend coming from an upper class wealthy environment. It's usually the other way around. And I don't think Saved by the Bell gets enough credit for showing this juxtaposition. Now, Lisa would come visit Kelly when she worked at the Max. She would order food. She would probably leave a great tip. But Lisa was not working at the Max. Lisa Turtle was not working or cleaning up for or behind anyone. Do you even think the stylish designer clothes that she wore would even accommodate something like that? Of course not, because Lisa's wealth, privilege, and status spoke through her clothing and how she carried herself. Lisa used her fashion as power. I mean, just think about this for a second. A young girl, mind you, in high school, being this well put together, wearing luxury designer clothes every single day. Always neat, always groomed. Lisa always looked high class. And the way she dressed spoke volumes and gave her a protective barrier, and people knew not to try her. When you saw Lisa Turtle, you saw a Black girl who was not from the hood, who was not struggling. And you saw a Black girl that if you got out of pocket with her, that her parents would probably sue you. You saw a Black girl who was raised from a 2-parent household and who was not in the struggle broke category. You saw a Black girl who probably also has a mother who also indulges in the soft life. Because who is staying up late at night or getting up early in the morning to press Lisa's clothes or get them organized or get her fashions together? Who is doing that? Someone that has leisure time. And you only have leisure time if you have the money to afford it. Lisa's fashion spoke wealth, trendsetter, who could afford to buy the newest trends to be a trendsetter. Lisa's fashion gave, I don't wear the same outfit twice, and I don't wear anything that's out of season. And that I have a designer hat to match every single one of my outfits. So trust me, nobody was going to try Lisa. And that is why I say Lisa used her fashion as power. Because she can afford lawyers and she can afford to win. Now, Lisa was a little sassy and a little gossipy, but not in that stereotypical way that you usually see when it comes to Black girls in television. It was fun, funny, and more contained because she also was a very loyal friend and a very helpful friend as well. And then you can tell that if her friends ever needed anything, she had no problem sharing her resources because she didn't flaunt her wealth to fit in. It was just who she was. She was a natural fashionista. And it showed us that presentation matters. Even if Lisa did not come from a wealthy family, you would never know and you would never second guess it because of the way she presented herself, because she carried herself so well. So Lisa Turtle taught us how to be light and dainty and how to flaunt glamour without guilt. She taught us how to use fashion as power. Number 2, Dion Davenport from Clueless taught us how to be unapologetic.
Perhaps you can explain how this cheap Kmart.
Stringy something or another you got up in your
I
hair.
do not wear polyester hair, okay? Unlike some people I know.
The way Dion made her presence so known and so assured in the world of Clueless needs to be studied and it does not get enough credit. Okay, so first of all, her name, Dion Marie Davenport. With a name like that, you know it's money, first and foremost. So we don't even have to guess at this point. Okay, so again, we have another Black girl in a high school setting who is a fashionista, who is wealthy, who has money, who is not just playing the Black friend stereotype or the aid to the white character. Now, maybe she was supposed to, but that is not how it went. Now, with that being said, I know that Hollywood would often add a Black friend or a Black character to a show to bring in a Black audience and to show diversity. We are very well aware of that. But with knowing that, if you are going to play the Black friend in a predominantly white Beverly Hills type money type of neighborhood, then Dion Davenport is how you do it. First of all, when I saw the movie poster of Alicia Silverstone's character Cher in that red mini dress with the fur, I knew it was going to give fashion. I knew it was going to give wealth. I saw my girl Brittany Murphy. I'm a big fan of hers. May she rest. But when I saw Dion Davenport, the Black girl with the braids and the two-piece plaid suit on that purple staircase in that poster, I'm like, yeah, I'm watching this because I have to know who that is. I have to know what she is about. And she did not disappoint. I'm watching because I wanted to know who Dion was. Because the media does not usually show Black girls in an all-white, wealthy setting who can outdress, outwit, outwealth with the best of them. Whether Dion Davenport was supposed to be the sidekick character or not, she was not. Dion was everything but the side character. Because when Dion came on screen, you could not help but notice her. You could not help but see her and be curious about her. Dion had some of the best fashions, some of the best comebacks. Her confidence and assurance was through the roof, and she didn't give a damn about what anybody thought. Dion was her own person and she shined throughout the movie. In every scene, I was waiting to see what Dion was going to wear. And trust, she did not disappoint. Let me break down to you how unapologetic Dion was. For one, she had braids. Now, anytime you see a Black girl in a white dominated space who is choosing to either wear her natural hair or a natural type hairstyle, is making a political statement. It is saying, I acknowledge who I am, I acknowledge my natural self, and I don't choose to conform or deny this part of me. And a lot of times when you see Black girls in high school that have an all-white friend group, a lot of times they find themselves conforming even when they don't want to, because they do want to fit in. They don't want to make their friend group uncomfortable. And sometimes they'll conform by straightening their hair. They may talk a certain way, appear happy, but sometimes underneath they may feel a little uncomfortable because they may feel like at times they have to deny a part of themselves just to fit in. So sometimes they find themselves going along just to get along. Sometimes they're slighted or treated a little different too in these friend groups. And these people may feel if they show too much blackness or they don't be white adjacent enough that they may lose their status, they may lose their friends. But this was not the case with Dion. This was not the case. She had braids, very well maintenance and kept up braids, which shows me she had leisure time to go get her braids done or touched up. And if you know anything about braids, braids can take up to 6 to 8 hours, sometimes even more. I remember once when I got braids when I was younger, it took about 14 hours. They try to do it in one day. And if you do that, it can take a long time, or sometimes it can be too lengthy and you have to break it up within days. And I've even done my own braids, which takes me about 2 to 3 days. So this shows me that Dion has time to go get her hair done, to go get her braids maintenance. Dion always had her nails done, always had her manicure, pedicure, always polished, never wearing the same outfit twice. And I always felt like her outfits had themes, once again showing her money, showing that she has time to come up with outfit themes, showing that she has time to go to the mall and shop, and that she can afford the latest designer clothing. And like I said earlier when we were talking about Lisa Turtle, we're talking about a high school student. You've got to come from some kind of money or some kind of family that has afforded you money and time to present yourself this way daily, effortlessly. If you want more proof, go back to the opening scene when Dion was introduced in the movie Clueless, when Cher picks her up to go to school. Did you see Dion's house? Did you see Dion's house? Now, this is in Beverly Hills. Now, a small house costs a lot of money, maybe a couple of millions in Beverly Hills. Dion's house was huge, the kind of house that cost at least over $10-12 million or more. And like I said, Cher was picking her up for school, not the other way around. So somebody had some money. I don't know if it's old money, new money. Somebody got some money. And I also want to point out when Cher and Dion were at school in the hallways, they were always walking side by side, or they would meet in the middle and end up side by side, which to me is symbolic of they're equal. They're on an even playing ground versus one is up here and one is down here. Dion wasn't pining up behind Cher. She wasn't begging to be her friend or to fit in that friend group. She wasn't using her to come up. She was already up. We love it. It's a reason that Cher chose Dion to be her best friend, her ace, her partner in crime, because in a lot of ways they were very equal. And that was very nice to see. Dion could match anything Cher could do. She could match the money, she could match the clothing. Dion didn't conform to be a part. She was already a part of that wealthy world. And she didn't change her blackness to do so. The fabulous life of living in Beverly Hills was just as much as Dion's story as it was Cher's story. Dion never shrank herself or played small to fit in. If anything, people were intimidated by her or played small or shrank themselves when she came around. She was confident, daring, and bold, and like I said, if anything, people bowed down to her. There was no mammy or maid trope with Dion. Dion's character represented privilege and a sense of I belong here too, without permission or an apology. Number 3, Hilary Banks taught us generational wealth.
Everybody's having a good time. Yeah. That is, until it's time for me to do the dishes.
Sylvia, let me take care of the dishes. My butler, Jeffrey, can be here in 15 minutes.
How about if we do them together?
Then what'll Jeffrey do?
Now, Hilary is a part of the bougie, privileged, upper crust, uppity women. Now, this type of woman may be called stuck up, or she thinks she's better than everyone else. Or some might say she's self-absorbed, spoiled, selfish, and living off of her family's money. Maybe even lazy. But you know what this type of girl says to that? So what? And that is why we love Hilary Banks. Her aloofness to how offensive she could be at times when it came to her not understanding her privilege and her wealth is what actually made this character funny. Hilary had a certain level of annoyance, but also a certain level of charm. You can tell she grew up with a silver spoon in her mouth. You can tell she was ignorant at times of how arrogant she could come off to others. But at the same time, it wasn't her fault to the full extent because this is all Hilary knew. This is the world that she grew up in. You can tell Hilary never worked a day in her life and that she does not plan to work a day in her life. And that may be appalling to some people, but Hilary loved to shop. She loved a life of leisure because that's what made her happy, and she believed that she should be happy, period. And if her family afforded her that type of lifestyle, she didn't understand why she would need to apologize or overly play humble or act like she wasn't as wealthy as she was. So let's address the elephant in the room. So one of the main reasons that people were so offended by Hilary's wealth and the way she went about it is because Black women were never supposed to have generational wealth, a life of leisure, and a soft life, especially when it comes to media and television. Throughout history, for Black women to have anything of luxury or to have a life of leisure, they've always had to work extra hard or triple the amount to even just get a fourth of what their counterparts get. And they always have to struggle in some way or go through some type of pain or some type of misfortune in some type of way. And that stigma is still here in the world today. So when you see a hyper feminine, subversive character like a Hilary Banks, of course people are offended. Because this is not supposed to be happening. Generational wealth is not reserved for Black people, it's not reserved for Black women. But what's funny about that is that white people and white characters on television live off of generational wealth all the time, and nobody says anything about it because it's normal. It's what we're used to seeing, it's the norm. It's actually celebrated. So, why is generational wealth such a bad thing or an issue when it comes to Black women? Now, mind you, I do understand. Yes, Hillary was spoiled. Yes, she could have done better. Yes, there were many times where Hillary was supposed to get a job instead of living off her father's money, and she didn't. Yes, I do understand. Hillary did have some flaws, yes, but outside of that, the bigger picture when it comes to the deeper conversation of generational wealth, if someone's mother and father worked very hard and accrued wealth, and they passed it down to their children, their grandchildren, giving them money to live a life that they want to live, a life that makes them happy, a life where they can actually serve others and live out their purpose instead of clocking into a draining 9 to 5, so that they can actually enjoy life as it is. What is wrong with that in that sense? Generational wealth is a blessing. Hilary's character is an answer to an ancestor's prayer. Someone who didn't get the life of luxury or the choice to even choose. Someone who didn't get time and didn't get to go shop and just live life. Not many people get to do that or have gotten to do that. A lot of generational wealth was stolen from a lot of Black people. So seeing a character like Hillary is refreshing because we've had to find a way to still be great and still aim for success, even when others have had a 300-year head start, regardless of the adversity that we face. So yes, when I saw the character Hilary Banks, my heart smiled because young Black girls, Black women need to see what more looks like. We need to see what it looks like for people to take care of us for a change instead of us taking care of everybody else. We need to see what it looks like to have a great self-care and the money to have great self-care. We need to see what high value looks like, standards, selectivity, not settling for less. There's nothing wrong with having high standards for yourself if you desire that type of life. The brainwashing that Black people don't deserve generational wealth needs to stop, and we need to encourage generational wealth as much as we can. And like I said, when we see white characters on television that are living off of generational wealth, nobody really says anything about it. For example, look at the characters on Gossip Girl. I'm pretty sure that after those kids graduate from high school, they probably will not have to work for a very long time, if even at all. And there was all kind of generational wealth on that show. There was old money, new money, hell, illegal money with the way they were getting down on that show. But no one ever really thinks twice about it, or nobody ever really questioned their generational wealth. We just saw a lot of privileged kids with money, and it was kind of cool. And we're like, wow, I would like that. Because nothing is wrong with having generational wealth and using it for the intended purpose to have a better life. Which is why Hilary Banks' character is so important, because she not only taught us to want more, but to expect more. Number 4, Whitley Gilbert taught us selectivity and a Southern accent. But I digress.
Sweetheart, before you join the corporate world, I'd love to see you get some real life experience. I mean, learn how to make it without the credit cards, Gucci pumps, Cartier watch.
Why?
Because you're a little sheltered and out of touch.
I touch with what?
The community, the way most people live.
I'm not most people, Julian.
So Whitley Gilbert is another member of the bad and bougie, but the Southern Belle version. Now, some adjectives that would be used to describe Miss Whitley Gilbert would be, maybe once again, stuck up, selective, Southern, traditional, know-it-all, uppity. And I get a feeling that one of her favorite colors is pink, and that she grew up with no elbows on the dinner table. Whitley Gilbert has an air about her, and she definitely grew up high maintenance with a capital H and a capital M, which is why this character is so important to Black women. First of all, her character is at an HBCU, so that by itself is monumental to see a Black character at a historically Black school. But going back to Whitley Gilbert, Whitley taught us that having standards and self-love is a form of respect. Now, a lot of people may say that Whitley Gilbert was shallow, but she was also charming, as we know. But if we look deeper, was she shallow or just being true to herself? Whitley Gilbert is not someone who's just going to associate with anybody. She comes from a certain class, a certain wealth, a certain ilk of people who want to maintain that high prestige and status. A lot of times, Black women, we are taught in some kind of way to lower our standards or just take what you can get because you're lucky to get that. So we do understand why it would be offensive to see Whitley Gilbert only wanting to associate with certain types of people, but let me tell you why it shouldn't be offensive. Being a Black woman in this world can be very challenging. Everybody gets to be a Black woman or a caricature of a Black woman. But when a Black woman wants to be a Black woman, some people find it a problem. It can be frowned upon, especially if you are a dark-skinned Black woman. So when you see a woman like Whitley Gilbert who gives pretty privilege, light skin, daddy's light skinned little princess, and this, very selective, uppity vibe, it feels natural to go against her without understanding that being light skinned or privilege is not just a form of wealth, but is a form of survival. Which is why pretty privilege and other types of privilege are sought after. People are trying to survive. Black women are trying to survive. Because for Black women, in the media and in real life, historically, we see how you're treated when you're not pretty enough, wealthy enough, or light enough. So, of course, when you see a character like Whitley Gilbert, of course, she's going to come from a line of women who want to preserve her light skinnedness, who want to preserve her status, her wealth, her prestige, because to them, historically, if you are anything less than this, or if you are below this, you're probably going to have a hard life or a harder life than otherwise. So that's where Whitley Gilbert comes from. So to understand Whitley Gilbert and her mannerisms and how she acts, you got to understand the psychology of where she comes from and the line of people and women that she comes from. Not making an excuse, but she was raised that way. Somewhere down the line, her elders, whether spoken or unspoken, taught her to preserve her type or to preserve her status because that's what the world has showed them. That's what the world shows us. And unfortunately, that's wrong, but sometimes you don't have time to correct the wrong. You just have time to survive. And if you don't protect your privilege, that you may not be afforded opportunities, or someone in your family that you may need to help may not be able to get access to certain opportunities, or that success may come to her in a harder way. Sometimes your privilege is not about you, it's about helping your loved ones and helping others that you love that do not have the privilege, the loved ones that are depending on you. So Whitley most likely is a product of her environment. Does not mean that she does not value depth, does not mean that she doesn't have depth. She was just taught to move a certain way in this world to get the most out of this world. And as we saw throughout the series A Different World, Whitley had a lot of depth, and her wanting to be associated with a certain type of people does not mean that she is some shallow little rich girl that looks down on people. It means she understands her worth and how to use it in an unfair world. We all know by now that no one is coming to save you, and that we have to save ourselves at the end of the day. So with this character, you almost see a self-preservation of privilege. She has to simultaneously set high standards for herself and also show others that she has high standards for herself, because high standards beget high standards and up the quality of life, while at the same time being the good friend, the sarcastic, down-to-earth Southern belle who just wants to fit in and be loved just like anybody else. And this is why we love Whitley Gilbert, where I feel like Whitley not only learned, but she grew a lot. For example, the Black History episode where she learned that her family was once slave owners to her best friend's family, Kimberly Reese. And that was a very emotional and very important episode. And even in her dating Dwayne, you can tell that Dwayne was not her type initially, but she fell in love with him for who he was and not what he could provide for her, which kind of goes against how she was raised, right? So this is how we know Whitley is down to earth and that she is still a normal girl just trying to balance out all of her personality along with how she was raised, which shows that Whitley's selectivity comes down from past generations. For example, her mother being played by another OG, high maintenance, bad and bougie, the late, great Diane Carroll. Can we say perfect casting? If there was ever a perfect mother-daughter duo, it was Whitley Gilbert and her mother being cast as Diane Carroll. So yes, Whitley goes from being spoiled to self-possessed, which shows her evolution and not just vanity. Whitley held herself to a high standard, so it's only natural for her to want that in return. Whitley Gilbert taught us that having standards is not arrogance. Number 5, Sandra Clark taught us that hyper-femininity is a flex.
Sandra, can you get that man to move?
Mary. I walked by the Lincoln Memorial yesterday and Lincoln stood up.
Now, of all the characters on this list, no one flexed hyper-femininity the way Sandra Clark did. From the way she walked, from the way she talked, her voice, and how she would say,
Hi, Mary. Hi, Mary. Hi, Mary. Mary. Oh, Mary, I'm so glad you're here. I need help. Mary.
Now, if you follow my short form, I have played homage to Sandra Clark several times. I've actually paid homage to all of the characters on this list several times if you watch my short form. It was Sandra's mannerisms, how she held her hands. When I talk about feminine energy in my other videos, this is what I'm talking about. Only Sandra Clark has it cranked up to about level 20, but still, this is feminine energy at its best. What I absolutely love about Sandra Clark, that unlike a Hilary Banks, a Dion Davenport, or a Lisa Turtle, Sandra did not come from wealth and this luxurious upbringing. And that's one of the reasons that she is so important, is because Sandra was able to maintain a life of luxury without being born into it. Sandra didn't come from money or live in a big house on the hills in Beverly Hills. But you could still put her in the setting with any one of these girls, and she would roll with the best of them. She lived in Washington, D.C., 227 Lexington Place, apartment K. And her upbringing was nowhere near as good as the other girls, but you would never know it. Because Sandra Clark is not to be missed, dismissed, or dimmed. She is a glowing sunflower, so steeped in feminine energy, and that you could not help but notice her if she walked into a room, because she was so distinctive. She was so charismatic, sensual, funny, and she owned her femininity. When you describe a character like Sandra Clark on paper, you would probably say, no, this is not going to work. She's too overplayed. No, but there was nothing overplayed about it. And shout out and kudos to Jackie Harry, the actress that played Sandra Clark. She understood the assignment. She understood the character, and she made her come to life. We really felt like we knew Sandra Clark like as a person, as if she were real. As big as her personality was, there was nothing fake about her. She was very true to character. You believe Sandra Clark in everything about her. Sandra Clark was who she thought she was. Sandra Clark lit up whatever room she was in, and she had the ability to change the energy of that room. She never shrank for anyone. She was always the bloom, the blossom, and the boom. She was always authentically herself, and whether she was too much for anybody, that was never her concern. Sandra was always put together, and she knew how to present herself, especially when a fine man was going to be around. So she was one of our hyper feminine girls that was male centered, but in a way that she still kept her power. Sandra is the epitome of it doesn't matter how much money you have, it's what you do with what you have and how well you take care of what you have. Because for her, being wealthy is not an excuse to not show up for yourself and not have dignity in yourself. Now, on one side of the coin, Sandra gives diva, man hungry, relationship expert, superficial and overly opinionated. But on the other side of the coin, you have a woman who is self reliant, strategic, who gives alpha female, who gives driven, who doesn't feel sorry for herself. She just knows how to get out and make it happen. She understands glamour without being wealthy, and she makes and lives by her own rules. And in her words, she's sensational.
Sensational Sandra Clark. That's me.
Sandra Clark has confidence through the roof, and she knows she's a woman, and she knows the power of her being a woman, and she knows how to use it. All of it, which is why her character is so funny and fun to watch. Sandra Clark eats down, and nobody has to tell her to do so. It's just her. She exudes feminine energy to the max, which is why her character is so powerful. Of all the girls on this list, if I had to bet on one of them, it's going to be Sandra Clark. Because whether she has money or not, whether she has access or not, she's going to find and make a way. Trust and believe, because she knows she's beautiful. She has curves, she has hips, and she knows how to sway them. Sandra managed to be high maintenance without coming from luxury. She made whatever she had work for her, and that speaks volumes for her character. From an acting standpoint, the work that Jackie Harry did on Sandra Clark is impeccable, especially with how specific she made her. And actually, all of the characters on this list were some of the best to ever do it. Jackie Harry even won an Emmy for this character for Outstanding Supporting Actress in a Comedy, and she was the first Black actress to win this award. Sandra Clark is important to us because she taught us that there is no reward in shrinking yourself, and that hyper femininity means value and, most importantly, visibility. And number 6, and nowhere near the least, Miss Dominique Deveraux taught us to be a disruptor and to use elegance as a strategy.
Alexis, you are many things. A sister is not one of them. There is a reason that you're interested in those Denver Carrington shares. I'd like to know what is that reason.
A good businesswoman takes advantage of a good deal and doesn't question motives.
I always question motives. That's how I've survived so long and so well.
With all of the women on this list, there is no one that could read you for filth like Dominique Deveraux. In the most nice, nastiest way, without even raising her voice, and would have you clutching your pearls from her one-liners. Once again, with a name like Dominique Deveraux, we already know she is not to be effed with. She is not to be effed with by anyone at any time in any capacity. Dominique Deveraux is important because she showed Black women the power of being the opposite of what they want you to be or what they think you are. She had many obstacles, and usually in a world where the antagonist is white, the Black woman doesn't win. But not only did Miss Deveraux win, she dared anyone to do anything about it. Miss Deveraux had audacity, because if she was nothing else, she was formidable. This woman's strength was her intelligence, her wit. She played her counterparts like chess, and sometimes even checkers, because not everyone was on her level, and she knew that. Unlike a lot of the other women on this list, Miss Deveraux was self-made. She was a businesswoman who had many business ventures, and she was very successful. And that was part of her strategy and her power. She used her elegance as a strategy, and she had enough patience to play the long game without letting up. Her verbal game was top tier and probably the best to ever do it, if I'm being honest. She would have these epic sparring battles with the character Alexis Carrington. And it was brilliant because she never raised her voice. And she read Alexis with so much poise and dignity, which is the opposite of the sassy Black woman or the angry Black woman. It was refreshing and brilliant because she had a way with words. She didn't need to use her hands, although we know she did get loose on Alexis a couple of times, but she didn't need to. Because as you saw if you watched the show, she could easily handle her with words. She used her words and her elegant demeanor as a tactic to outsmart her rivals. She was headstrong and strong mentally, and you didn't see a lot of that on television. You often saw the Black woman kind of mentally struggling or broken in some way. She was so stylish, and if you're taking notes on this video, take note that every one of these women were stylish and fashionable and knew how to present themselves. They all had signature looks and were trendsetters. So anytime they stepped in a room, before they even spoke, their style and their clothing and their wealth was already communicating with you first. And it's powerful because clothes sometimes communicate even better than words. Sometimes you got to show a person better than you can tell them. Clothes and how well you put yourself together sets a precedence and says a lot about you before you even speak. And Miss Deveraux understood that to a T. A Black woman fighting to be heard, to be seen, in a world that did not set her up for success. Miss Deveraux showed us how to disrupt the status quo and that she deserves a space and to take up space and that she is just as important as the next lady and that she also has a right to sit at the table. She didn't just take what they gave her, she took a stand and she told them what she was deserving of and what she was not going to take. The most beautiful thing about this character is that Diane Carroll, the woman that played her, was also like this in real life. She was the first Black woman to enter the soap opera world, not as a maid or a friend, but as an equal. Diane Carroll was the first Black woman to star in a leading non-stereotypical role on a U.S. television series, which was the show Julia that ran from 1968 to 1971. She was also the first Black woman to win a Tony for Best Actress in the musical No Strings, and the first Black woman to win a Golden Globe for Best Actress in Equality in Pay and for fair representation of Black women in television and film. Dominique Deveraux taught us that you don't have to shout to be heard, and that it's okay and even nice to be a disruptor when needed. But do it with elegance, grace, and most importantly, style. Being a high maintenance Black woman is not just about having a life of luxury and vanity. It's also about having high standards, high values, and being intentional about what you want out of life. If I could meet any woman on this list, I would say thank you for the representation and changing how we see ourselves, showing us how to see ourselves in a different way. Thank you for helping us feel seen, and that it's okay not to settle. But most of all, thank you for being revolutionary and showing us that anything is possible. So who was your favorite high maintenance Black girl growing up? And let me know in the comments if you want me to do a part 2. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And remember that every woman is iconic. Until next time, bye now.